Okay, so we're going to go over the 4.0.4 design where we're introducing the concept of runtime managed records. And this is how we're going to manage your project meta, your installed libraries, and everything that goes into your companion lib, including your specs, your instances, and your functions. And all of these things now are managed by a unified infrastructure that we control with the RT tag. So, for example, your settings, we used to basically have this project meta tag, and we still have this. But you're also going to notice when we look at this guy in the database, he's going to have this RT meta tag. Now, everything with the RT tag basically now means it's a managed record and you can't commit to it normally. You have to use one of the special Haxall functions. So, for example, if you want to change this guy, you're going to need to call project meta update and we can add a tag. Okay, and we can see it adds that tag. If I was trying to commit to this guy directly, you're going to see, let's try to change that and remove that tag. You're going to see this exception, which is cannot commit to manage RT records. Okay, and that's what that means now. Basically, anytime you see that RT tag, you're going to have to use the appropriate function to manage that record. So there's exactly one RT meta tag. You're going to see this also in your system database. If we go to the settings, you're going to notice this new tab called sys, which is your metadata for the sys. This is typically your host display. This is where your host display name that might show up in your clustering used to be configured. Now, in terms of your library management that we've looked at in terms of your namespace apps and the things you enable in your projects, each of these guys is now managed with an RT lib record. So if we go back to our shell and we look at RT lib, we're going to see all of our lib records here. Okay, and they're basically going to have a name tag for the library we're enabled. The RT lib tag indicates it's the managed record. This is how I enable a library. Now, the functions I use with these are lib add, lib remove. Settings also go on this. So this is basically replacing the old extension name tags. Okay, if I was to go change let's go change the rule app here and actually the settings for the rule. And I'm going to come over here and change this. And now let's go look at that. Basically, you're going to see that my settings got merged in there. Okay, so that's your libraries. The last thing we're going to look at, which is the biggest change, is the companion library. So during the early alpha phase, that we were storing the source code for your functions and your specs into a directory on the file system. Now we're going to manage them all with RT records. And what we're going to store is the AST for those records. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go to the code app and I'm going to create a new spec. And I'm just going to use my standard thing here. I'm going to say person as a dict. And he has a display name called string and an age called number. Okay, and let's go ahead and save that. So now this guy, let's look at how this guy got saved. That's going to be RT spec. Okay, and if we look at this guy, we're going to see he's just got an ID that's whatever's in the record in the database. His RT tag is going to be spec, which means he's a spec in the companion library. And he's a spec, so he's got the spec tag. And then notice that we're not storing the source code. We've parsed the source code into the AST, which we call the abstract syntax tree, and we're modeling that in the records. So he inherits from sys.dictionary. Notice that's a ref. And then his slots have been compiled into a nested grid here with the type and their attributes. Okay. If I was to go back and let's go back and to that code editor and let's change him and add some attributes. I'll just add the admin tag, which doesn't make much sense. And then we look at this guy. You can see that basically all of that metadata just gets flattened into his AST representation. Okay, and you can see this is also very similar to how we, if you look at the spec with the mix-ins we've been doing, this is how this is all working too. Likewise, if we want to create an instance, I'll just call this new instance, and I'll give him some tags. And let's give him a number and save him. He's going to get stored with the RT tag instance. Okay, notice he's just flattened out here with all of his tags. Now notice his spec, he subtyped from dictionaries here, so that's his spec tag, and then everything else got flattened out in terms of his number and the display here. RT instance is how we know that that guy's going into his companion lib. Now these guys are now in the companion lib, so I could actually look at all their specs and instances. They've gone into my namespace. Lastly, let's look at functions. Okay, let's create a new, let's go over here and create a new function from the old thing, and I'll just call it hello. And we'll say hello world. Actually, and let's give it some parameters. And we'll say a plus b equals a plus b. And we'll save that. Of course, we can run it and get our answer. Now, what does this look like? This looks like, let's look by name. This is going to have the RT func tag here. Okay, so within the companion library, we have RT spec, RT instance, and RT func. Okay, and then you're going to see he's subclassing func. And then what we've done is we've parsed your axon into the AST. So you remember starting in 4.0, we model functions in ZO as things that subtype from func, and then all of your slots become your parameters. So they're just typed as object because we don't know what they are, and then we returned objects. If you were doing this in Phantom or you wanted to add types, you could add those too. And then notice your axon metadata is just your source code. So if we were to look at all these functions now in the companion app, you can see that they're actually all just those specs, which we've talked about at Skyposium and earlier. So once again, the idea here is everything that is managed by your namespace is now using these RT tags: RT meta, RT lib, RT spec, instance, and func. And all of these guys have a whole set of libraries that we're going to use. If we go to the docs, that's going to be your new companion lib. Let's go to the companion lib, the companion APIs under HX. You're going to see all of these new companion libs: companion add, parse, func, read, remove, etc. Okay, and what these can do for you is they can, if we look at this guy, it's probably the guy you're going to use the most. If we take this example here and we run him in the shell, you're going to see what he's going to do is spit this source code out as the model you need for the RT record for that function, right? Notice he basically parsed it into the representation of something that subtypes from func. Okay, so if you were manually scripting funcs, this is how you would probably do it now with a companion func. And you can also use companion parse if you want to basically parse a spec. Let's go ahead and parse a spec here. And I'm just going to say person is a dictionary with a string tag. And you can see that basically will turn that source code into the representation you need to store into the database. Anyways, this is the new design starting in 4.04.